All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. So this is the agenda for today's meeting. We'll be going over some format updates, some new resources we have on YouTube, some status updates around version 3, and perhaps some discussion around a few of those points as well, and some discussion around launch kit backends and the most recent launch kit release. And then a quick update on 0x Mesh, which was one of the requested ecosystem topics for this meeting. And then an ecosystem spotlight session where two teams will be presenting some of their work. So yeah, quick note on some format updates. Very similar to what we discussed in the last meeting. We will be sending out a survey beforehand to see if there are specific topics that anyone wants to talk about during these meetings. So we're making some room for community agenda topics specifically. We're also opening up these meetings to teams to do quick 5-minute presentations on some of the cool things that they've been working on using 0x. We are considering opening up a post-call open office with live technical support for anyone building on 0x. Yeah, please let us know if you have any other suggestions around any of these things. And yeah, I think everyone should be getting these surveys in the reminder email about a week before these dev meetings take place. All right, so first of all, we have a couple new resources up on YouTube. We are starting a video series called Decrypting the Law and just released our first episode of that. So our strategic legal counsel, Jason, will be diving into various legal issues that might impact different stakeholders in the 0x ecosystem. The first episode is diving deep into some of the functions of the SEC. We also just released, I think this is our first episode of a Build with 0x series, where we're going to walk through how to use 0x in various scenarios. The first episode talks about how to launch a DEX using LaunchKit. If you are interested in any specific topics that could fall into either of these series, please email Brent at 0x.org. And don't forget to subscribe to these videos and like them if you get a chance to watch them. Cool, so let's dive into some of the 3.0 status updates. So ZIP 39 describes a specification for this static call proxy, which allows market makers to essentially put conditions on their orders. So orders can only be conditionally filled depending on some piece of on-chain state. So this is useful for non-fungible tokens that might have different properties that aren't necessarily represented in just the token ID. So the code for this has been merged. An audit should start in about mid-July, although just quick reminder that this is not really a security critical smart contract. It has no potential for touching any user funds. It's not given any approvals or permissions within the protocol. It just kind of needs to be registered within the 0x smart contracts. And then after this audit takes place, there should be a vote shortly after to accept both the static call proxy and the ERC 1155 asset proxy, which has, I think that was merged about a month ago now. So we already kind of went over some of this functionality in the last dev meeting, I believe. So if you want to dive deep into that, yeah, please watch the previous video on YouTube, or if anyone has any questions, happy to take those as well. So I want to talk about a new ZIP that we just posted yesterday, I believe. Sorry, 1 second, my screen. All right, sorry about that. So we previously talked about creating an asset proxy specifically for sourcing liquidity from Kyber. But since then, we've been toying with a few different ideas and came up with this generic ERC20 buyer asset proxy, which would essentially allow you to plug into any different on-chain liquidity protocol. So this asset proxy would call into other contracts that anyone can deploy. And these contracts just need to specify a specific interface. And this would allow you to source liquidity from any different on-chain source in the form of 0x orders. The downside of this is that the gas costs would be slightly higher. Other than that, it doesn't feel like there is much of a downside to me. And it also allows these different on-chain adapters to be added much more quickly because anyone can build and deploy these at any time and just plug them in by kind of routing through this generic asset proxy. So there won't necessarily need to be votes on like adding new on-chain liquidity sources or anything like that. These the end adapters that target these specific on-chain protocols are generally less risky than adding a brand new asset proxy. So they don't require any user approvals or anything like that. But there is some potential to if someone deploys a malicious proxy and someone attempts to make a trade with that, you could get some undesirable results. But that's kind of a similar scenario to someone just trading a malicious token. So generally, I think relayers are kind of going to act as the filter for these things, and they will probably specifically support certain proxies. Yeah, in general, curious how people feel about this specific ZIP, or if there are any questions about it. This would supersede the Kyber asset proxy ZIP completely. Yeah, any thoughts about this?
The additional gas costs, do they come from added validations around that asset proxy?
I would say the additional gas costs are primarily from like routing this data through one extra contract. So rather than going directly from the exchange to the Kyber asset proxy to the Kyber network contracts, you would now go through exchange to ERC20 buyer to Kyber asset proxy to Kyber network. So it kind of just adds one smart contract into this chain. And there might be certain fields that aren't fully utilized with each on-chain protocol. Things like that could make there be a little bit of overhead, but I don't expect it to be much worse than it was before. And yeah, so I just want to say, like, if this thing gets added, could very easily add support for like Kyber, ETH2DAI, Uniswap, Bancor, DutchX, probably missing a few. And then those could all be represented as 0x orders. I think the tricky part of all this will be kind of creating the daemon that you would need to run to actually monitor all these external protocols and get the correct pricing for these orders. Quick update on a few more ZIPs regarding order matching. So ZIP 40 and 41 describe two new order matching formats. So one of them is very similar to the previous match orders function. It just matches two orders at once. The difference is that you would receive a spread denominated in both assets of the orders rather than just a single asset. This ends up being a little bit less efficient typically, but there are many UX reasons to do it, especially if you're a matching relayer and this is kind of how you charge fees. This has been a highly requested feature. The code for this is currently in review, and I think we also just recently got some new comments on one of these ZIPs as well. So might have to review some of the math in there and make sure that this works for everyone's needs. So if you are interested in using this, especially as a matching relayer, please take a look at both these ZIPs and give us feedback. ZIP 41 adds a way to match an arbitrary number of orders together. So this will allow you to do better market orders and stuff like that as a matching relayer. Or if you're an arbitrager, there should be more opportunities to match as well. Just generally more flexible. And this should support kind of both of the spread models, so either taking a spread in one asset or both of the assets. We also recently just improved some of the new signature types. So ZIP 33 originally added, I think, 2 new signature types. But since then, we've been monitoring EIP 1271, which is an Ethereum improvement proposal that kind of standardizes signature validation by smart contracts. And we decided to make these new signature types EIP 1271 compliant. So this now just adds a single new signature type, which is the EIP 1271 wallet type. So you would use this if you had a smart contract that actually held your assets and you wanted to trade from that smart contract, and it would take in the entire order as a parameter rather than just the hash of that order. We also replaced one of the old signature types with a new one that is also 1271 compliant. So previously, the validator signature type only took a hash of the data that was being signed, and now that will also just take, the entire order or 0x transaction. And this is the type of signature you would most likely use if you were trying to implement some other type of cryptography, for example. But the validator smart contracts do not actually hold any assets. So yeah, this last bullet point here just kind of shows you what the isValid signature function would look like now. It would take either an order or a 0x transaction represented as a byte array, and then it would take the signature also represented as a byte array. And then you can, kind of arbitrarily manipulate these as you see fit within the contracts. Just out of curiosity, yeah, if anyone was previously using the validator signature type for something, would definitely like to hear about it. My impression is that it hasn't been used very much, and that this change will actually make it much more useful. Previously, it would kind of only be useful for a very specific subset of things.
Yeah, we used it in the Rigoblock protocol, and it was kind of yeah, hard to actually validate the parameters of an order within the wallet. So we use the signature type wallet, and is valid signature, order hash, and signature. So we basically ended up with being able to use the is valid signature with closed relayers, because there we could actually come back to the origin, the transaction origin of the signature, so we could understand where this was coming from. So it was from a so-called trusted source. So there we would basically assume that the order was filled through the matching engine, and then there would be no arbitrary opportunity to fill an order that was far off the kind of mid price.
So it sounds like these would actually be pretty positive changes for you then?
Yes, it is. It adds a little bit of backward incompatibility. So I hope that with some extensions we can implement it without having to make a general upgrade of the protocol. But if that's the case, we're happy to do that because it gives more flexibility. And I mean, it was impossible to check for the parameters before. So
yeah.
Would it be feasible to just add this as an additional signature type where, you know, I can't remember the byte ID 5 or 6 of the original validator, just add this as an additional one and leave the old one for...
Yeah, so we decided to replace it in this PR because honestly, I didn't think anyone was using it. And I feel like right now there are so many different ways to use a protocol that it's a bit confusing, like under what scenarios you would use different signature types. But if it is an issue, like I don't think it really hurts much to leave the old signature type in.
Yeah, I have a client that Open Relay was working with that was building something that was using the validator type, but they've kind of gone in a different direction. So I'm not sure that they would still care.
Okay. But Gab, it sounds like for your use case, it would probably be better if we kept the old signature type in as well.
Basically we have a soft upgrades and hard upgrades, and basically I just have to check whether we can make it a soft upgrade. I'm not fully sure because I didn't check on this one, but even if it's a hard upgrade, we're ready to support it. Not now maybe, but I mean it's not a problem at all.
Okay.
So we don't need to have you keep this old check just for us.
Okay, that's good to know.
Did we mention that those would be checked on every fill now?
Oh yes, thank you for the reminder. So in version 2, there is this optimization where after an order has been partially filled, we just assume that the signature is always valid. So you no longer have to pass in the signature or validate the signature for that order. It ends up saving a pretty good chunk of gas. But for all these smart contract based signatures, they may rely on some piece of state on the blockchain that is actually changing over time. So it makes sense to just validate those particular signature types every single time. So we made that change as well.
Will that be on a signature type by signature type basis, or will like a...
It's only for both of the wallet signature types and the validator signature type.
Okay,
I believe.
So like the ECDSA signatures will still just be validated once?
Yes.
Cool, okay.
All right. So we also just put up the initial PR for ZIP31, quite a large PR. This implements the stake-based liquidity incentives, and yeah, I think probably 50% or more of the entire code of for V3, if I had to guess. Currently in review. I think we're going to be trying our hardest to simplify this code as much as possible over the next month or so. But this pretty much implements, all of the major features. So you could do staking, delegation. It's upgradable. It has also this kind of catastrophic failure mode in case anything happens, just to make sure, there are as few assets as risk as possible. Here's kind of a high-level design overview of what's implemented in this PR. So actually, there are a few pieces of this, specifically the governance system and the contract registry that are not implemented in this PR. But essentially, how it works is you have this staking contract proxy, which holds all of the state of the staking contract. But then you have the actual staking contract which holds all of the logic for that, and the proxy makes a delegate call into this. And then you have these different vaults which hold the actual assets used for staking. So there's a ZRX vault, and then there's also the reward vault, which collects Ether which collects all the rebates for each epoch. So if we wanted to upgrade this system, you would essentially just swap out the staking contract and all of the existing state that is used for determining how much people are staking and how much people are delegating and all of that would stay the same and would not have to change. So this allows for pretty seamless and flexible upgrades. People wouldn't need to restake or redelegate or anything like that if an upgrade were to happen. Anyone have any questions on this? I guess one thing I wanted to highlight, I think I might have brought this up in the last dev meeting, but the current idea is that there will not be a governance system in the initial implementation of this. So the idea is that there will be some leftover protocol fees collected at the end of some epoch. And this is supposed to go into a smart contract that's governed by ZRX holders, and they could choose how to distribute these funds as they see fit. But I think that's a pretty large undertaking, and initially there will probably not be very huge amounts of fees collected. So we want to roll this out incrementally if people are on board with it. And the governance system could be included in a later update. Instead, the leftover protocol fees would just roll over to the next epoch. So kind of bootstrap the rewards for the next epoch so that there's kind of always something there. So I think, net of everything, this kind of just ends up with more of the rewards going to market makers and delegators. Any questions on this? Cool. So in terms of strictly engineering tasks left for V3 as of now, there are a few large features that are currently being reviewed and need to be finalized. So both of the matching ZIPs are pretty large, and some of that might need to be tweaked. All the staking contracts need to be finalized as well, and there are definitely things in there that will need to be tweaked and simplified. And then after the staking contract is merged, it just needs to be integrated into the exchange contract. So the exchange contract is actually collecting fees and sending them to the staking contract. I think 0.3 will not be a huge undertaking. And hoping to have all of this completed within the next, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks, with an audit starting at the end of July. Ideally, we would have 2 audits lined up. and they would be somewhat staggered, although we do not yet. So one of them would probably be, roughly end of July to end of August, and the next one would probably be either mid-July or late July to the end of September. And then, in the meantime, there's a lot of work to do that's not related to the smart contracts. So we'll be updating all of our tooling, releasing a more formal spec that includes all of the changes to the protocol, and much better documentation than what we have now. Jacob, do you want to take this point?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of give a quick update on LaunchKit. So we released version 0.0.4 and kind of fixed, a lot of low-hanging fruit. So now, if you've been using LaunchKit prior to this release, you would have had to, basically git clone and modify the underlying source code to make a whole bunch of changes. So we introduced a config file where you can basically specify JSON and completely change the UI of LaunchKit, as well as like the backend and stuff as well. So you can quickly, mock up this rep like exchange, changing all the values and all the tokens listed in the market, and the theming all around that just with one config file. This config file can also be volume mounted into the containers as well, so you don't have to rebuild any of the containers or anything like that. The containers themselves have been reduced in size by about like 6 times. So you can kind of pull them in with about 200 megabytes worth of containers. And just a quick fix on the old database being mounted into the container, so the orders persist across reboots. So just some things coming up for LaunchKit that we're working on is basically adding mesh support. So that'll be coming up as well. And we are also considering and talking internally about adding different relayer models to LaunchKit backend. So LaunchKit right now supports open order book, but we are considering adding coordinator support and potentially like a matching example to the backend. So if you have any thoughts or questions around that, feel free to kind of reach out. And if you've got some interest in that, it'd be good to know. So if you want to go to the next slide, Amir, I've got a little mesh update. So speaking about mesh, we did some long-running tests on using like a Infura endpoint, comparing a mesh with Order Watcher. So on the left here, you can kind of see the Order Watcher RPC calls and the data usage in Infura, and on the right is mesh comparison. So you can immediately see that mesh is using 3 times less method calls and about 3 times less data pulling from an Infura node. So for those who are kind of getting rate limited by Infura, if you're not running your own node, then mesh seems to be much more performant. If you go to the next slide as well, yeah. And then we decided to add some telemetry into mesh versus Order Watcher as well. The top left graph, you can kind of see the updates, and the top right shows the invalidations. And you can see this smooth operation of mesh with the green line here, where it'll invalidate these orders as they expire, over time, at the right time, and quite smoothly as market makers set these expirations to expire. Whereas Order Watcher can get a little bit choppy, especially with an Infura backend. So what you really want to see is that nice smooth transition as orders naturally expire, not this choppy jumping, which could mean that an order in Order Watcher could be expired, but this choppiness is happening, and people might accidentally be filling an expired order. In the bottom half, you can see the difference that mesh calculated when Order Watcher eventually updated this state. So some of these can lag quite greatly, which is not great, but it's good to see that this is now fixed completely in mesh. So mesh has always won versus Order Watcher in getting a state update as well as a expiry invalidation. So Fabio might be able to give an update on the upcoming mesh beta.
Yeah, thanks for going through that, Jacob. So on the mesh side, we've been hard at work trying to get it ready for the beta. The remaining to-do items are mostly small, but some of it is related to making sure that we're ready for the beta and we can collect metrics and logs from all the beta participants and triage bugs and fix them as quickly as possible. So we're working hard to get our ELK stack up. That should be coming online soon. We also decided to spin up our own network of Bootstrap nodes. Before we were using Protocol Labs's Bootstrap nodes, but it's a lot faster to connect to peers if we have one that's dedicated to the mesh network. So we're also going to do that before the beta. And so now the beta is slated for the 12th of July. But as Jacob has been showing, mesh is already ready to be used as an order watcher replacement, and we're planning to deprecate order watcher before the V3 launch. So take a look. We have documentation in the GitHub repo. We're also always available on Discord. And if you're interested in participating in the beta, like please let us know. We'd be happy to issue you credentials so that you can spin up your mesh node in a way that we can collect logs and find any issues from your deployment. Also happy to field any questions if anyone has any.
Cool. Thank you for the updates. We have a couple of questions that came in through the surveys that we sent out. So the first question is, how will zero knowledge proofs fit into 0x token economics? Who will run nodes, etc.? So I don't have a 100% answer to this. I guess there are still a lot of open questions around what this zero knowledge proof based DEX will look like in its first production version. But I can tell you some of my best guesses around it. So initially, it's going to be fairly parallel to the core 0x smart contracts. I think it'll use like the 0x asset proxies for deposits and withdrawals and stuff like that. But very much a separate product where you will have to deposit your assets into kind of this side chain, do your trades there, and you can withdraw if you want to interact with other smart contracts. We are still working on the economic model of what this will look like, but generally it's pretty hard to encode a lot of complexity into the constraint systems of this sidechain. So I'm guessing it'll be something similar to the fee model relayers use today, rather than like the full-blown V3 token economics. I think it seems like there is a path to implementing the more complex things, but I think in the first version that hits mainnet, I would expect the functionality to be somewhat similar to like what a matching relayer can do today. Ideally, the system would support multiple relayers who can choose to either do matching or use kind of more of an open order book model. And then also to be determined who exactly will be running the proving nodes. The easiest version would be that there is just a single operator who is running a proving node and generating all these proofs. But there are definitely ways to kind of decentralize that using a proof of stake type system. Hard to say what the timeline for that would look like or what would hit mainnet first. I would say our general philosophy on this project is that it is definitely a longer term project, and we want to have it ready to be deployed when scaling becomes an issue. But until then, we would most likely have like quarterly releases, but not necessarily actually deploy each one to mainnet until there's significant demand for it. I hope that answered the question. Yeah, if anyone has anything else specific about that they'd like me to dig deeper into, happy to answer that as well. All right, and the second question, what type of relayers are you guys seeing the most interest in? Is it the standard token trading or the more unique relayers, e.g. NFT and prediction marketplaces? It seems like the demand right now is in more traditional token trading, but I don't expect that to always be the case. We're seeing a lot of demand in like margin trading and lending protocols right now, or DEXs that are integrated into lending protocols. Seems like this is a use case that's pretty difficult to do on centralized exchanges even. So like this is kind of an area where there's actually a lot of value for users to use DEXs right now. So yeah, I would say that seems like where the demand is right now, but like I think there are going to be all sorts of very unique relayers coming out that we're excited about. Especially with like non-fungible token marketplaces. I think what we need to see there is a game that seriously gets product market fit and has tradable assets. Really excited about a couple games that are coming out soon, and I think that could really help with this. Prediction marketplaces, yeah, I mean, really excited about Veil and a few others that are coming online soon. I think these will be much more usable once Augur V2 comes out, and you could kind of have longer standing predictions because things are denominated in DAI. Also really excited for relayers trading kind of other long tail assets to come online. So things like Compound now has tokens that represent assets that are being loaned out, or like Uniswap has tokens that represent shares in their liquidity pools. I think there are like definitely some interesting use cases for trading these things and hedging your exposure in various ways. But I think right now, like the user base for a lot of decentralized exchanges isn't quite that advanced yet. Are there any other questions? I think these were all that came in from the surveys for the most part. Cool. Well, why don't we jump into our ecosystem spotlight sessions? So first we will have Oc2 DEX presenting.
Hey guys.
Go ahead.
Hello everyone.
Hi guys. So this is Susmit.
Hey, this is Kuldeep.
So we have made Oc2 DEX. So it is like first relayer from India. So it is a matching engine relayer strategy that we have followed. And this was drawn from the inspiration because of the falling of the or closing of the doors of the centralized exchanges of the India. So if we see current scenario of India, crypto regulations are quite uncertain. And due to that, it is forcing the centralized exchanges whose architecture currently are dependent on the banks of India. So they are like kind of shutting their doors in India. So crypto traders as of now in India are left nowhere to trade. So even if you see Binance, so first traffic source was coming from USA and second was coming from India. So this was the major source. But then cascading effect is happening again in India. So one centralized exchanges falls, other centralized exchanges pops up, and then it takes over the traffic. So, but then again, that centralized exchanges get shut down. So what we see, people are started to realize that we need a platform that is persistent. We need a platform that does not go anywhere, and here is where we fit in. So it is the first layer from the India, and then we have been working on this Oc2 DEX for past 6 months, me and Kuldeep. So we both had a stable jobs. So we both left our stable jobs and working full time on it from on bootstrap mode. So yes, so Kuldeep would like more introduce about the product itself.
Yeah, so we've been working on our DEX in 6 months. As of now, we have created this DEX on based of on the Ethereum side. It's 0x is integrated with the. For now, it's 6 tokens are available on the DEX. We've also worked on the Lightning Network. We've introduced a little game. It's called a slot machine on the Lightning Network itself. It's been featured in couple of places. And for the mobile DEX part, yeah, we've been working on it. We've written the code in such a way that the front end on the website and on the mobile part are going to be shareable for the most part. I myself have been working as a React Native developer for 3 years, so we have got things figured out for that for most part of the that one. And in the DeFi space, yeah, of course, we'll be working, but there's still a lot of time left before we can finalize the DEX and create it more stable and integrate more features from the 0x protocol itself.
So yes, we are like kind of talking with other people also, and then we like kind of exploring the space also, looking into the other protocols that could be like concatenated with the 0x to develop much further protocols. So as of now, we have like plastered on for margin lending, margin trading, which will be rolling out soon, and then basket management protocol that would also be rolling out soon. But yes, but in the future, like in coming month or so, we want to take the DEX to the mobile platform. So we want to do it in a minimalistic way. So no wallet onboarding, like as I told before, like formatting and React Native combination that we are thinking of that we will do.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. And yeah, I totally forgot to mention, if anyone, either Oc2 DEX or Merge Coins, if you have a presentation you actually want to give, I'm happy to stop sharing my screen and you can take over as well.
Awesome. Yeah, Ryan here from Fabrics. We are the guys who built Merge Coins.
Chris here, also from Fabrics.
So Ryan here from Fabrics. We are a unified API for Web3. We're one of the companies in the 0x Accelerator, and we've been building a lot. We've fully integrated the 0x Instant. We've fully integrated the launch kit, and essentially with the click of a button, you can launch a relayer utilizing Fabrics and start trading on it within an hour or so. So one of the first kind of use cases that we just put together as a fun concept was Merge Coins. Merge Coins are stable coins backed by gift cards from major retailers. So you can imagine we have different gift cards from Starbucks to Best Buy to Walmart, and they're all different ERC20 tokens. The reason Merge Coins was awesome for us is we were able to go from idea to live on mainnet in a matter of 3 days because of the tech that we'd already built out through Fabrics and with a lot of the help from 0x and the 0x team. I'll show you guys like a demo of buying a Starbucks token. So this is a gift card Starbucks. Say I just want to buy one Starbucks token. I buy it through 0x Instant widget, place the order, accept on MetaMask. And what's awesome, I just want to give props to the 0x team, is that you can use this with so many different wallets. I love being able to just pop up the Coinbase wallet or Trust wallet and use it directly from there. It literally took no extra dev time from our end to make that happen. So we're pretty pumped about that. Once this completes, I will have an actual gift card token. I guess it's going to take 24 minutes because it's clogged, so I'll save you guys a headache. But I will have a token that I can then redeem for an actual Starbucks gift card. In the meantime, we also launched within those 3 days the merge coins DEX. So we have different merge coins that are pegged to wrapped ETH, and we have a lot of liquidity where we're posting sell orders on that side. And then we have the inverse where they're pegged to DAI, where we are, I guess it's not showing right now. Well, tech bug, but we're also posting buy orders on the opposite side for DAI. So this is merge coins. You can buy them through the instant widget. You can trade them for other gift card tokens through the actual DEX. And you can actually already use your merge coins on eMoon. You can already use them to buy ENS domains with Target gift cards or Starbucks gift cards. So just wanted to share it with the community. Thought it was a pretty awesome project that we put together in a couple of days on top of 0x. Now we're really working on building out an IFT and like a Zapier platform for Web3. So we see 0x as being one of those core components in the DeFi space for that. So just thanks for listening, guys. Excited to share that with the community.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very cool. Does anyone have any questions for either team?
Yeah, how does the redemption process work?
Let me share my screen again. So after you have the coins in your wallet, you simply go back to mergecoins.com and click redeem. On that, you select the merge coin that you want to redeem for. Currently, there are 6 live: Target, Walmart, Starbucks, Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy. We bought Starbucks, so you can redeem in increments of gift cards. Since on the back end, we're processing the whole purchasing of the actual gift cards. So let's say I have 25 merge coins, gift card Starbucks tokens. I simply enter my email. So Ryan at Fabrics, click redeem, and in the back end, Fabrics is generating an ETH wallet for that end user. That user just has to send 25 gift card Starbucks tokens to this ETH wallet, and then automatically on acceptance, a actual gift card code gets sent to that email, and they can go use it at Starbucks, Target, any other retailer.
Nice, nice.
Cool. Well, thank you both for presentations. Yeah, both look really promising, and yeah, excited to see these things get some use. Congrats on the launch.
Thank you.
Thank you, 0x team.
Thank you, guys.
Well, if there are no more questions, I think that will conclude our meeting for today. Yeah, as usual, please, stay tuned. We'll be posting comments on CIPs, forums, etc. We're always monitoring Discord, and yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us if any questions come up. Thank you, everyone, for joining today.